Greetings and salutations, my fellow primal movers and enthusiasts. Welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Perez. I'm a movement specialist, coach, and the founder of Primal Kinetics Training System. In this episode of my Beef with Veganism, I will address a popular vegan-vegetarian claim. But before commencing, let me mention that I do not like any type of dogmatic ideology, especially those whose advocates are intolerant and proselytize their beliefs to the point of being zealots. One of these dogmatic ideologies is veganism. It is not surprising to see so many vegans pushing their ideology using misinformation on YouTube and other social media outlets. So, I have taken upon myself to refute and debunk all their claims and arguments. In episode 2 of this series, I addressed why veganism, once taken to its logical conclusion, will be disastrous for the environment, making veganism or any other plant-based diet for that matter unsustainable. And the claim to be refuted in this episode is meat consumption causes heart disease and cancer. This claim is based on a false premise that meat is the main cause for many illnesses, especially ischemic heart disease. Ischemic heart disease is a disorder that impacts the blood supply, thus it can be rather a dangerous issue. It is also called coronary artery disease. The result is the decreased oxygen distribution and drop in the necessary amount of nutrients. It may lead to the deprivation of heart and further extension of the heart tissue, and the fatal outcome is a heart attack. Another claim is that the intake of cholesterol-rich food sources causes the imbalance of cholesterol in our blood, and this imbalance between good, in quotation marks, cholesterol, HDL, and bad, also in quotation marks, cholesterol, LDL, can also contribute to the development of heart disease. Well, none of these claims have been proven, and it is all based on speculation and data manipulation. Studies made by special interests like pharmaceutical companies wanting to sell statins and vegan activists pushing their agenda are the main culprit for avoiding animal products at all costs. They use propagandistic tactics to sell their products, and in the case of vegans, to recruit more gullible people to join their misguided ideology. You will hear things like, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer in the USA, and the standard American diet, or SAD, that is laden with saturated fat or cholesterol from meat and dairy is largely to blame. Produce contains no saturated fat nor cholesterol. Incidentally, cholesterol levels for vegetarians are 14% lower than meat eaters. Every time I hear this, I want to just bitch slap them. First of all, the standard American diet is not laden with saturated fats and or cholesterol, which is unfortunate to say the least. It is, however, laden with trans fats and refined vegetable oils. Both are derived from plants, and it is these highly processed fats and oils that are associated with the increase in heart disease. Second of all, correlation does not equal causation. Let me repeat this, it's very important. Correlation does not equal causation. This is a very common informal logical fallacy that ideologues like vegans use. And thirdly, higher heart disease rates in meat eaters is not entirely surprising. One reason is that these studies rarely differentiate between processed and non-processed meats and the health of the food source. Comparing foods that come from humane organic farming versus commercial industrial farming is like comparing a Toyota Prius with a BMW i8. Not even close. Do you want to know why it is best to buy from local organic farms, or better yet, have your own farm? Take a look at this. Listen to this. According to a nationally representative cross-sectional study in 2009 and 10, approximately 57.9% of calories in the United States of America diet comes from ultra-processed food. It is safe to say that the vast majority of red meat eaters are having their meal alongside fries, soda, processed fruit juices, etc. Or perhaps eating TV dinner full of refined grains and trans fat. What makes more sense based on what we already know? Is it that it is red meat or the junk food the culprit of the problem? There's a quote that fits perfectly after reading this. Civilized man is the only animal clever enough to manufacture its own food, and the only animal stupid enough to eat it. Barry Groves. Are there any controlled studies comparing those who eat a balanced diet comprised of unprocessed fresh red meat from healthy sources and veggies with vegetarians, vegans, and junk food consumers? Of course not, at least not yet. Perhaps there's a randomized controlled trial which controls for sugar junk food consumption. Nope, there's not one of those either. However, a meta-analysis in 2016 of 24 short-term randomized controlled trials investigating how red meat affects lipid levels and cardiovascular risk factors show that red meat has neutral impact on cardiovascular risk factors. In fact, amongst the participants, cholesterol, triglycerides, and the total cholesterol HDL-LDL ratio dropped over time. Saying that consumption of red meat is harmful is simply fear-mongering propaganda. It is not red meat itself, it is the source of said meat. Does it come from a sick or healthy livestock? With what it is being accompanied, like side dishes? How is it being prepared and cooked? So many questions that many vegans do not dare to ask. It is safe to say that avoiding all types of highly refined foods, or plastic foods as I like to call them, is the best course of action. Aside from that, we must also learn how to prepare and cook our foods at home. Cooking animal foods at high heat will create carcinogens. The byproducts include heterocyclic amines, or HCA, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH. Essentially, the hotter and longer a meat is cooked, the more HCA and PAH are produced. Our ancestors learned this the hard way, by trial and error, and took them thousands of years to perfect it. And to now see some scientists telling us otherwise is scary, to say the least, because they are supposedly to be objective and stay clear of dogma and money. They claim that vegetarians and vegans have lower rates of cancer compared to non-vegetarian vegans has been contradicted by a 1994, yes, from 1994, study comparing vegetarians with the general population. Researchers found that although vegetarian Seventh-Day Adventists have the same or slightly lower cancer rates for some sites, for example 91% instead of 100% for breast cancer, the rates for numerous other cancers are much higher than the general US population standard, especially cancers of the reproductive tract. Seventh-day Adventist females had more Hodgkin's disease, 131%, more brain cancer, 118%, more cervical cancer, 180%, more uterine cancer, 191%, and more ovarian cancer, 129% on average. Notwithstanding, according to scientists at the Cancer Research UK Epidemiology Unit, University of Oxford, studies of cancer have not shown clear differences in cancer rates between vegetarians and non-vegetarians. And there's this study conducted by researchers from Cornell University that concluded that long-term vegetarians have a mutated DNA and also an increased risk for cancer and heart disease. Enough about studies, especially epidemiological studies, which are boring and not very reliable for so many reasons, as you might have noticed. What about the fact that Hong Kong has the highest rate of meat consumption per capita and the longest life expectancy in the world? How is that possible? When according to well-established scientists and organizations who keep telling us that meat consumption is bad for our health. People in Hong Kong eat 60% more meat than the next highest meat eaters in New Zealand. The beef consumption in Hong Kong is also very high, ranking them number 3 in the world. The life expectancy is 84.3 years, which is a stark contrast with India, where the life expectancy is 68.3 years. We could take into account all the factors that are involved in explaining why there is this pronounced difference between these two regions. But as you can see, there's no doubt that the consumption of meat is not detrimental to human health, at least for those living in Hong Kong. It is worth mentioning that France has the highest consumption of saturated fat and has the lowest rate of cardiovascular heart disease. Switzerland comes in second in the consumption of saturated fats and also second in lowest cardiovascular heart disease. The proof is in the pudding, and that pudding is not vegan. Once vegans are confronted with these facts, they usually have 2 or 3 reactions. Either they dismiss all these facts, or they switch to the moral, ethical argument, and when this doesn't work, they start attacking and insulting. One of their go-to attacks is to call us murderers, like we're murdering animals. We're just killing them for food, which is necessary for our survival. But they do not want to accept that. I have made 2 videos so far. I'm working on the 3rd part of the cultic behavior of vegans. I suggest you watch that. And also watch the 2nd episode where I present a very strong argument about why veganism is not sustainable. I want to recommend 2 great books. The first one, which was one of the ones that opened my eyes to all this, was written by Weston A. Price. It's called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and one that I'm currently reading called Vegetarianism Explained by Natasha Campbell. For anyone inclined to help me make this channel grow, I started a subscribe star page for you to contribute with as much as you are willing to give. And for that, you will be compensated one way or another. I am new to this, so please bear with me because I'm going to make many mistakes. Thank you very much. And until next time, goodbye.